Not live yet. Oh, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Destiny I Process live Google Hangout. I'm Christina. I am hosting today, and we are continuing on the bully series that we started last week with Anna. Today we're going to specifically talk about cyberbullying, which is, the same kind of behavior you can see in the school, in the schoolyard with kids, or in the workplace, or even in families. But here we're talking specifically about bullying online, on the computer, in forums, and on Facebook, and kind of the behavior that has evolved to what it is in terms of being able to just type something to anyone and have no accountability. It can be very anonymous, and within that it can be a little bit more extreme. So we're going to talk about that today with Andrea, who is here from South Africa, and Mike, who is here with us from Canada. Hey guys, glad you could join us.
Hey, glad to be here.
This is a live hangout, so you guys are more than welcome to participate in the discussion on the Google Plus page of the Desteni I Process events page. You can just go to the Q&A section, type in a comment, and we will definitely get to that so that you can join with us in this discussion. Also, if you're watching from the YouTube page, you're going to want to click on be part of the discussion, and that will take you to the Desteni I Process events page where you can put in questions and comments and perspectives. So let's start. I'm just going to open this to both of you guys, Andrea and Mike. If you guys just want to tell us briefly about your experience with cyberbullying or, bullying online, just give us a brief background in terms of what you've come across since being online in relation to bullying. So whoever wants to start.
Yeah, I'll start. So my own experience in relation to cyberbullying, in relation to being involved with Destiny and other organizations, has, as you've mentioned, there been one of other people on the internet don't agree with what you are doing, what your organization is involved in, and they are, you either get paid internet bullies, people who are paid by specific organizations to target other groups, won't go into that now. Then you get just your plain old, your trolls that get a kick out of going after other people, going after people that they don't agree with, and basically just bullying. Like you said, the schoolyard bully who is now grown up, and now he goes and wants to lash out with that same energy, that same nastiness at other people, and form groups and websites where they can do this. So basically this attention was turned on to myself, being one of the members of this group, and basically what I experienced was, as you said there, the velocity and the force at which these people come at you with their opinions and their views, and they're so quick to go from, what was fascinating was to observe where, the entire modus operandi, of course, of the group is to take a small piece of information, whether it's factual or partly based on fact, and then they turn it into rumors and they twist it and they change it and whatever. And as you said, the speed that they can change something from a little point of information here into a complete lie, and then push it through other websites and other groups that they're linked to, and then they can actually, from our experience, what happened was that this specific group said, look, we're going to bring you down, we're going to ruin you, whatever, big words, which is not so big, but if you start looking at the financial harm that can be caused, where they specifically targeted myself and the group and said, look, we're going to make sure that you stop functioning. So if you're financially dependent on your organization existing on the internet, they can really do harm because they spread, they falsify information, defamation of character, and obviously people on the internet have to use the internet as a medium to get to know other people and other organizations. So if they're coming across, they Google in your organization's name or your name, and they then come across this website or organization that's saying these bad things about you, they take that at face value because that is, after all, what the internet has become. It's become this point of where we trust almost too much what is in front of us, but at the same time we don't know how to separate truth from fiction. So a lot of people would come across information about us and they would read it and go, whoa, okay, I don't want anything to do with these child molesting people. I mean, I've been accused of molesting children. I've been accused of stealing money from people, all kinds of weird and bizarre things. And it's had financial ramifications. It's, for me personally, it didn't have necessarily emotional, mental ramifications, which we can talk about a bit later, but I'm sure for other people it would. So that's been my experience. Even death threats. I've had death threats that people are going to come to my house, they're going to kill me, rape me, murder me. So yeah, sometimes you do look at the threats and you go, wow, what if somebody actually takes it seriously and they follow? Because you can see the level of possession that the person goes into is extensive. And some have even said, I'm going to go to South Africa, I'm going to find their farm, I'm going to find it on Google Maps, and I'm going to go and rape them and kill them. So that's what I've faced in relation to that.
Wow, yeah. There are some really interesting points, but we'll definitely come back to that. So, Mike, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience with the bullying online?
Yeah, I would say to a lesser degree, as what Andrea has faced. Though being part of the Destiny group, I would say sometimes it's come at me, indirectly just through association, where, because shit's being spewed over here, then that's like coming at me as well. From like various sources, whether it be the person directly who had spewed the shit, or through somebody I know who's now read some of the shit that's being spewed, and then they're throwing that at me and, you know, questioning or challenging my own character and kind of siding with the bully mentality and basically just outright attacking me for nothing that is really grounded with any substantial weight. Also, just in having like a YouTube channel and being part of Destiny and talking about myself and pushing myself to express myself beyond limitations, that sometimes becomes quite confrontational as well, where, directly sometimes I would look to engage points of acceptance and allowance in this world, like within myself and as the greater world system, and that would cause lots of reactions in others sometimes, and it would just, you get hate-filled responses sometimes.
Yeah, that point about the group mentality, which Andrea and I were discussing just a little bit before the hangout. How do you guys see that? I mean, when you look at like someone is in school and like that group mentality in terms of people kind of gang up and will kind of start attacking the little person, or trying to overpower this one person when there's a group of them, that can be really intimidating, and the power of a group has to really kind of push at someone else. Like, what are the consequences of that? Do you guys see, like, the dangers of a group mentality in terms of cyberbullying? Because I can see how, like, in the schoolyard, you have the popular kid, or a few popular kids that kind of set the tone for how others can behave with a specific person that's being targeted, and that can translate then to online. And Andrea, you had that experience, and obviously we all have with Destiny as that, being targeted as the group or whatever. But what do you guys see is the dangers of the group mentality? And yeah, if you guys want to talk a little bit about that, like the dangers of the group mentality in terms of cyberbullying.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned there, it starts for many individuals. It starts in the schoolyard, in a classroom situation where the child's psyche is being developed, and the school and the teachers and the adults are not catching on to what is busy happening in children, or they see a bit of schoolyard bullying, they see almost as a natural way for children to develop and to build their self-esteem. There's always these justifications and excuses, and they don't realize that it's not innocent, because obviously the child is becoming this persona and they're becoming used to being the bully. We won't go so much into the development of the bully for now, but what basically then happens is, out there in the internet, as we said, a person will then basically join a group of people. And what I've seen in a lot of these organizations that are doing internet bullying is they'll, for example, be your groupthink mentality, which you mentioned, which is a bunch of individuals over here, which are coming together all for their own reasons. Most of them have issues with other people, issues with themselves, anger issues. They like bullying, they like causing trouble. It's basically called a troll. They get an energetic kick off going after other people, making people feel bad. And what kind of power you get out of actually being able to move and direct other people. I mean, in physical reality, I can go up to Mike and I can try and push him and bump him, and Mike can stand there and I'll be like, oh, damn, that didn't work. But on the internet reality, I can move and bump his reality with words and with information by getting other people to move with me and to create false information, falsify information, and eventually really make that individual on an information level cringe and withdraw and experience themselves in a particular way. And especially if you look at how children experience internet bullying, is that they, unfortunately, which again is a product of our society and how children are brought up, children are very much defined by how they perceive others see them. So the internet bully or internet troll functions on that level, where if I can say to an individual, you are this, you molest children, you are shit, you are bad, if that person, which is where our children are at, unfortunately, they very much focus on their self-esteem in relation to how others see them. So if I target one child for long enough and I say to the child, you shit, you're bad, you're ugly, you know, all the stuff that internet, you know, trolls are doing to other people, and that person believes it for long enough, you can change that person's life. And I mean, there are people who are committing suicide. I mean, in my own research in Destini, researching the groups that have been attacking us and actually going behind the scenes and communicating with people who they have bullied, I've heard stories of suicide where people, these internet bully groups have actually split up organizations. They've actually been able to split people up because obviously those people were not as effective as standing by their principles or whatever they were doing, whatever the reason was, but the group would go in and they would financially, mentally, emotionally break the members down, and the members would actually then disintegrate and leave the group out of complete fear. But they wouldn't stop there. They would then keep hounding them and somehow find their email addresses and their postal addresses and keep sending them mails and keep bullying them. And some people have actually committed suicide. Some people have put up videos on YouTube saying, I don't know what to do anymore, I've been traumatized. Some have gone to the authorities. But internet bullying is a fairly, I wouldn't say a new thing, but it's not being taken that seriously by the authorities yet, because not that much harm has been done other than emotional, mental, you know, harm or the experience of harm. So only now the authorities are starting to scratch their heads and go, oh dear, you know, children are starting to kill themselves. People are starting to experience financial losses and things like that. So they are starting to take it a little bit more seriously, but that is the power of groupthink, that people can actually go out there and they can cause financial and emotional damage to people, and they get away with it. That's the level where we're at now. It's a fairly new crime, and it's not being taken as seriously as, for example, me shooting you or going and beating you. All of that is happening on an internet level, on an information level, but that's where it's so much harm is happening, and the authorities are still clinging to this point of freedom of speech, freedom of individuality. Therefore, the cyberbully is being allowed to continue to express themselves in this way. And the authorities, I know, they only step in if you can prove that actual physical or harm has been done to yourself or to another.
Yeah, that's kind of where it becomes complicated or difficult, because the internet has no accountability, or it has not enough accountability where people can hide behind fake names. You know, there's no information given to who these people are, and I think within that being hidden, people, especially those that bully, want to take it to an extreme level. Like, they have this outlet now to really push that point within themselves, to really just lash out, and it is, like you said, it creates a lot of consequences. People have killed themselves because of this, especially, like you said, young kids. They're so vulnerable. And I think being on the computer, it's kind of an isolated activity. You don't usually hang out with other people sitting at the same computer. You're kind of doing your own thing, and you read these words on your screen, and they're targeted at you specifically to harm you and to hurt you. I think that that's a very vulnerable then position that, especially like you said, kids and teenagers are in. So I mean, for us within the group of Destiny, we have been exposed to haters, as we call them, or people who wanted to bully, who were specifically writing comments on our blogs to create harm, or were in a reaction. And what we did a couple years ago is the AntiHate campaign, and as a group, we kind of took on that, the bullying comments and the kind of attacks that were coming at us, which I think obviously supports, as an individual, to stand with other people, with you, to support you in facing such a point of online bullying. So can you guys talk a little bit about your experience with that? Mike, if you want to start, like, your experience with the AntiHate campaign and what it was. Maybe if you want to just describe it a little bit more, and how you see that supported you facing cyberbullying.
Okay. Well, the anti-hate campaign was a group of us within Destiny. I believe Andrea was the one who started it up, where we basically decided, like, okay, we're gonna just like face all these Destiny bullies, attackers, abusers, and we're gonna go after them directly by finding all their shit spewing and reporting it through the channels, whether it be on the forums to the moderators or the Google channels and whatnot, and just take responsibility to just clean up, a bunch of shit that's been spewed and remove as much of it as possible.
Yeah, like kind of giving some common sense to the irrational, words that were coming out, like kind of putting things into perspective.
Yeah. Exactly, because I mean, within it all, in many of the platforms, not all necessarily, is that there was people who'd set up the initial platform for people to come together and chat within a forum. Weren't necessarily vindictive or malicious by their own nature. They just kind of set up the platform, and nothing was really that closely monitored, but they did have guidelines within it, so just, using those, like you said, common sense principles of, love thy neighbor as thyself kind of thing, treat others how you want to be treated, don't talk shit about somebody else, and, spread misinformation. There was, to a certain extent, a lot of stuff was been able to be done as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think... Go ahead, Andrea.
I just wanted to add, also what we saw was relevant in relation to doing that campaign was a point that I mentioned earlier, where people now go and are looking for information about the group or the individuals, then the hater material comes up, and that's their only point of reference, these lies. So we wanted to take each piece of material, each video, and actually speak about each point and say, okay, no, we don't do that, that's not so, that. So that the public always have the actual truth to go and look at and can actually work with that information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a couple comments from Joe I want to just address here quick. First, he writes, one aspect that I faced in terms of bullying is actually rooted from early childhood, where my parents were my first experience of being bullied, which I, in a way, internalized and then acted out at school as a bully myself. So, yeah, that's cool. That's kind of looking at the development point of, like, where the bullying comes from. Chances are you were bullied yourself, which is great, Joe. If you want to come next week, we're going to have a hangout to finalize this series about the bully mentality. So it'd be great if you could also join next week and add some more perspective with that. And then he also said, one important thing that Andrea just touched on, the impacts of bullying might not be immediately apparent. The casual link between the bully and their consequences are often dismissed or not considered. A slow poisoning is less obvious than an attack. Yeah, and from my perspective, that's also the accountability point or the anonymity on the internet. You know, no one's being held accountable, or no one's seeing the effect that their behavior has on another person's life. Where, you know, if you're at school or you're at work and someone's verbally bullying you, you know, that bully themselves has to face, you know, their victim in a way, and they can kind of maybe see more clearly what kind of effect they're having. Whereas on the internet, you don't get to see that, and you don't see the influence that you can actually have in someone else's life and the consequences of that. Did you guys want to mention anything about that comment?
Yeah, you know, it's something that came up for me while you were talking was it's this computer gaming technology that children are, where they play games and they watch movies, and everything only happens over there on the screen. As you said, there's no personalization, no accountability, because everything is over there on the screen. So if I go in and I shoot the little monster and he blows up, then I'm like, yeah, and it's so cool. But I then think that if I go in real time and I go and find little characters on the internet and I go and compete with them and we start arguing and debating over information and my opinions versus your opinions, and then I can, same thing, gaming mentality, I can go at the person and destroy them, and it's a whole nother dimension that one could talk about, the gaming mentality and the television entertainment mentality, and how that disconnects a cognitive dissonance for the child, where they're not learning that this, as you said, this being on the other side is an actual person sitting behind a computer. And even if they do comprehend that, the experience, the anger, the irritation that children are growing up with lately is their feeding point as to why they think it's okay to attack other children and other people. That value of life and value of another, that's slowly being removed because of, and again, it's a point of where the bully is coming from, the design of the bully, but that is quite a vast topic in relation to how that person's psyche is busy developing for them to get to a point of going, I want to and need to attack other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to look at more of the individual that's being bullied, I think let's talk a little bit about that, because my experience, and as Mike said, his experience was with cyberbullying. I didn't really have any experience or exposure to that until I started participating with Destiny. And in that, I in a way had a defense, because I was standing within a group, and so I wasn't so much attacked individually. It was more as the group. So let's look a little bit about at how an individual is being attacked online. And from my understanding, it's a lot of school children who go to the same schools are then being bullied online. You know, their classmates are writing stuff on their Facebook page and sending them text messages, and really kind of utilizing the internet as a means to, you know, play out that whole scenario. So, I mean, what is your guys' experience, or what would you say to someone who finds themselves being attacked by classmates or by individuals or a group, and they don't have what we had in terms of a group to kind of lean on and to support us, who feel really alone and feel like, you know, because I think someone without, you know, the Destiny process and the tools and what we do in terms of writing and self-forgiveness and understanding how our mind works and facing our reactions and not taking things personally, I think without those tools and that process, people are so vulnerable and they feel like there's nothing that they can do, and that really has an effect on their well-being. So what would you guys say to someone who finds themselves in such a position that doesn't have the Destiny process as an understanding to apply to support themselves?
Okay. What you say there reminds me of something I learned in my first year of school. It was kindergarten, and it was when I went home to talk to my parents about my experience in kindergarten the first day, and on the schoolyard with all sorts of kids, all ages. And I told him that there was like all sorts of like crazy talk happening because before I went to school, my conversation, consisted primarily with my few friends who lived on the same street as me, and my parents and maybe immediate family. So it was very much stable communication. I didn't have any older siblings, so there wasn't a lot of like crazy talk, if you will. And so I was saying like, some people called me names, but I saw like a lot of people calling other people's names, and I had like no idea like what to do or how to handle or anything. And I think it was my dad. He told me, he's like, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt you. And I mean, a little bit at the time, it was a little bit kind of like fucked up because it was like, because you experience when somebody says some real shit to you, and if you don't understand like how the words are and whatnot, like the energies about it, you kind of experience a real, zing from that. Like it hits you, like you take it in and you accept that within yourself. Um, but I kind of just looked at that point just from the point of like, okay, yeah, like if somebody throws like a stick, like I'm gonna see the cut, or whatever. But if they throw the words, maybe I can, say like, no, I don't accept that word to bother me. And that was kind of like, I mean, I don't think I totally realized the extent of it, but basically that, when someone throws a stick at you, you don't necessarily have the same choice of whether that stick's going to cut you or not. If the stick's sharp or the rock's sharp, and it physically hits your skin and whatnot, it's going to like penetrate. Whereas, the words, how seriously you take them and let them bother you, you do have a certain point of discernment within that. And if you don't give credence to what's being like spewed at you so much so, it loses its velocity, because so much about words being slung at a person is, it's like fight back even a little bit so that you can throw a bigger knockout punch at them. Yeah, so that, I'd say that's like a valuable lesson for anyone, is to um, not take it personally, and that really somebody's mistreatment of another really reflects their own mistreatment of themselves. And as much as it seems like a personal attack, because that's the thing that will never make sense in your mind, is like how somebody could really, be like that to you, want to like just be so mean to you, and it really has nothing to do with you specifically.
Yeah, so it's about that point of learning how not to take things personally. But it's so, I mean,
It is personal attack, and so it's kind of like a contradiction in that
right,
sense. It's like, well, how do I not take it personally when they're directly throwing this at me? It's not like I'm not here. I'm
right.
seeing it. I'm experiencing it.
It's not like they
Um,
didn't put my name in front of that sentence.
yeah, like they totally, just fucked with my character kind of thing.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of like the fine line of really where what it I'd see the point is just of standing up for yourself, of where it's like, okay, yeah, they're being like, a real jackass or whatever, and call a spade for what it is, see it for what it is, and realize like, like, okay, I don't have to allow myself to be brought down amongst the shits that's being spewed, and it's kind of really taking the higher road, and I think there's great potential to lead to one's own self-empowerment within that, because if you realize like the impact of words from a negative regard like that, you can see how words can be like a great strength of support for oneself in talking yourself out of the problem.
yeah, exactly. And that's where I think Andrea can interject here about how to use cyberbullying as an experience to reflect and create self to be empowered and to stand up and not accept what's happening. So, Andrea, do you want to talk a little bit about that in terms of your process in and taking the words that were thrown at you and how you were able to process that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what I did, for example, is I would use the person as, because I would realize, okay, this person is busy throwing words and information at me, but if I'm going to allow myself to define myself according to what they say, then I'm accepting that and I'm then becoming that. So first of all, that problem then exists with me, and that's my responsibility. So what I would do is, which was a cool exercise I know for all of us, was initially I know that there was this whole like a bit of a shock that took place as the years progressed, and we drew more attention from the public and from these trolls, and the threats and the words became more serious. This initial like shock went through the group of, oh my goodness, this is happening. There were many reactions, many people experienced, and my own experience was some reactions here and there. And then we all started working with, and I specifically worked with assessing, if words come through, what am I reacting to? And then I go and ask myself, okay, this person said, for example, that I am stealing money from people or I'm abusing people, and there's a movement inside of me. So then I go and look at, okay, why am I allowing this movement, this reaction inside of me? Is it because I believe this about myself? So that's one dimension that a person can go and look at. Am I actually believing what that person is saying about me already about myself? Because if I go into that thing and go, oh yes, I am bad, I am stupid, I am ugly, oh my goodness, then obviously that means that judgment towards myself is already existent inside of me, and all that is happening is that that person is acting, that troll is acting as a mirror for me to see what is already existent inside of me. Another dimension that I looked at is, if I carry a belief inside of me that who I am is determined on what other people say and think of me, then obviously I'm going to constantly react. If a person goes, she's this, she's that, if I'm constantly reacting, then I'm basically dealing with the one fundamental point, which is what others say about me determines who I am. And you see, this is unfortunately currently where we are at in relation to how adults, parents, and the education system are teaching children about self-value, where we see it as it's a fine dynamic for children to grow up believing that what their friends and other people say about them is who they are. This is the personality construct design that is busy playing out between all humans currently on this planet. We believe that for me to have self-value, I must seek out what others say about me. So I'm a good person if they say I'm good. I'm a bad person if they say I'm bad. And this is how we've separated ourselves into other people, into other institutions and organizations. They must give me my self-value. So if we can, as a solution, bring children to the point of, I am here, I am me, I'm stable, nothing moves. I mean, nothing, if you say I am ugly, does that word really come out of you and go rip into me? No, it doesn't. I can't do that to you. I can't go, she's a cow, and now what? Does the little picture of a cow go out of me and into you, and you're a cow? But unfortunately, I mean, that's a very like simplistic example, but unfortunately that's what we've designed, and children are constantly on minuscule levels every day interacting in school and in class. I like you, you're pretty, you're cool, you're stupid, you're fat. And it's on a minute level, it's on a quantum level, it is moving so fast, and children are programming constantly their self-esteem and their self-belief based on this interaction. And if you challenge that, for example, if you were to work with people on this one fundamental point, they'll say to you, but isn't that what being human is all about? We must learn from each other and love each other and get value from each other. No. I mean, I work with it as, I'm already here. I'm a physical being. I'm here. I'm stable. You know, I exist. Therefore, I don't need your words to come at me and tell me I'm good, I'm bad. I can, through my life, walk and assess, I'm doing this now, I'm breathing, I'm eating, I'm doing my work. And in that, I can work with myself to develop my skills and abilities and to stop habits and things that I see are not effective. But this exchange of information where we morph ourselves, that's something that we've adopted over centuries now, but it's not really effective. And that is the foundation on which cyberbullies work. They work on that specific thing that I can say a thing to you and it'll hit you, boy oh boy, and then I've like scored big time. So that's how I worked with it. in relation to those two dimensions, just looking at, wow, do I believe this about myself? Oops, okay, I need to go and work with this because this person said she's dumb and she doesn't know anything, and I reacted, and I go look at it and I go, oh, I do have a belief that I'm stupid. Okay, so I go and work with that. Or do I really believe that what this person said? Now, obviously, in classroom situation and for children, it becomes more difficult when it finds its way into your physical reality, meaning then you get schoolroom bullying, you get people hurting each other because of online bullying. A point that you mentioned where online bullying is one thing, but then it finds its way into social circles. Those are arenas that obviously we're now not saying cyberbullying cannot affect you. We're saying the words cannot really do anything to you, but there are dimensions to it that people have to go and consider, where parents might have to get involved. This teachers and the student bodies need to get involved, and then you might need to get the authorities involved, because if this group is causing financial harm or is causing other people to attack you, like let's say this group had come to my house and attacked for some reason, I must be able to find a solution to it. So there's practical considerations in relation to cyberbullying as well.
Yeah, and it's really then about that individual. It's about what you accept and allow within yourself, whether that's bullying online or outside in the school or at work or in your family. It's about deciding, what am I going to accept and allow? Am I going to accept what people say about me? Am I going to allow it to influence me? Am I going to allow it to ruin my day or my life? Am I going to allow myself to dwell on what other people think about me? Or am I going to establish a relationship with myself where I get to know myself and I find my own self-worth, where none of that has an impact? It doesn't have to have an impact on my life. And that's where you can then decide not to check the emails or the texts, not to reply, not to respond, talking to your parents, getting authorities involved without the fear of how that's going to make you look, because you are making a statement and you're standing up and saying, I'm not going to accept and allow this. And I think that that's really Desteni, obviously, in the tools, what we've been discussing, our realizations and our understanding of how to approach this, it really comes from walking our own process of learning and understanding what the mind is and what humanity has become and why we exist the way that we do in relation to each other and why we want to harm each other with words or otherwise. And I have some more comments from Joe here. If you guys don't have anything at the moment, I'll read these. Let's see. Joe says, I find that people are more connected through social networks, yet have lower self-awareness and practical social integration. Society has come to value social status and network reputation instead of personal integrity. Therefore, cyberbullying and attacks on one's personalities become particularly effective and damaging to individuals who have invested more into the opinions and acceptance of others instead of self-awareness and self-acceptance, which is exactly, as you mentioned, Andrea, when we give value to what other people think about us, obviously then their words can have a great impact on our lives, unfortunately. So we're coming, we got just a few more minutes here. If there is anything else you guys want to share in relation to this point, I mean, obviously, we're talking about the Desteni process and how that has supported us as individuals to understand what cyberbullying is and what's happening within us when we feel like this person, what they're saying, is valid about us. And we have the Desteni I Process links that we'll share we have free courses, and we have other courses that you can take to learn about how to practice these tools of self-awareness and breathing and looking at your mind and understanding what's happening and why you feel the way that you do, and learning about self-forgiveness, which can, I think, ultimately help not only let go of any reactions that you have, but also allows you to understand why people exist the way that they do, so that it no longer becomes about blaming a bully, like making it the bully's problem, or making such a scenario about the bully, but understanding, okay, why this person has created themselves to be the way that they are. So we'll share the links, of course, on the courses, the DIP Lite free course, which is an introductory to the Desteni process. But if you guys have any last words about cyberbullying that you want to mention that you think is relevant to share for anyone who is facing this and feeling like, you know, they just don't know what to do and they feel really overwhelmed.
Yeah, okay. I'll say just one final thing to reiterate what's been said is really, you know, check yourself before you wreck yourself, and this is kind of going on what Andrea has said about the self-reflection in seeing the shit that's been spewed at you, where, you know, you just really check within yourself, you know, why is this bothering me? What specifically about this point is getting at me? And then, you know, clearly define it within yourself, and then actually make the move to forgive yourself for that point, so that you can actually just, you know, release your own shit. And within doing that, it puts you in a real, you know, power situation, if you will, in that you've become self-empowered, and that you may even have the ability to assist and support the bully to step out of their own program by, you know, calling them out and kind of putting them in their place in a way that's not derogative or anything, but just saying, like, you know, through my own self, you know, investigation and forgiving myself, and obviously I forgive you too for what you do, because you don't know what you do, you know, you can really take ownership and authority for the situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what I can add to that is, I mean, obviously the subject is so vast, and we really recommend to people, if you're stuck in it, as Christina said, join us on the forum where we can help you to really look at your experience and what is going on. But a final sort of suggestion that I can give is for people to also stop playing the game in society, where what I've noticed a lot we tend to do, and especially in relation to what you mentioned there, Christina, the celebrity syndrome, where young people and people on the internet have social status and social requirements. You're cool if you do this and this and this and this, and if you don't do this and this, then you're uncool. And inside of ourselves as individuals, we all tend to have these systems of value where we go, I will like him if he does this and this and this and this, but I won't like that person because she's like that and she's wearing that and she speaks like that. But then we find ourselves locked into social media and social platforms where we want to play the game of saying, she's so uncool, man, Miley Cyrus did this and she did that, and I hate you because you said that about Miley Cyrus. And we don't realize that we're getting pulled more and more into playing the game, and then when the game gets too rough, then we stand back and we go, oh no, I was the victim of a social network situation where there was bullying going on. But we didn't realize that if we are on any level playing the game where I'm saying she's cool because she's got that t-shirt on, but she's uncool because, oh man, that color was so last summer. I mean, that is getting definitions and foundations in society where we get riled up and we play the game with each other, and it starts on the smallest foundation. So as an individual, if I just stop playing the game and I don't participate, then even on the smallest level, I'm going to stop those charges between myself and another person on a platform where I go, you stupid man, or and it's that's, I would suggest, start with that, assessing, as you said, within yourself of what games am I playing on subtle levels, because those subtle levels are the starting foundation for bullying and for other situations that play out that could for other people be life-changing bullying situations. So we can take responsibility for that and for our own experience of what is this bully showing us about what exists inside of ourselves. And then join us if you feel like, oh my god, there's too much going on, I can't even make heads or tails of why I'm being bullied or what to deal with it. Join us on the forums and we'll assist you.
Yep, perfect. And we'll share the link to the forum so you guys all have access to that. So thank you guys so much for coming. Like you said, it's such a vast topic and we could probably talk about this for hours. But I think that what we got to is great. And if you have more questions or comments or anything that in relation to this Hangout, you can always write to us at desteniiprocess.com at gmail.com. And I have one more comment from Joe coming in here. I'm going to read that quick. Stop playing the game before the game starts playing you, and you become your personality character and forget who you really are. Great expansion on that, Andrea. Absolutely, yeah. Decide what matters, you know, and I think that we get so caught up in the petty bickering and conflict between individuals that we can't see the equality and the potential for harmony and creating something better for not only our lives but for each other. You know, instead of diminishing each other, we can actually lift each other up and, you know, get on with what, you know, is really needed from each of us in this life. So thanks again, you guys. And next week we're going to be back with one more topic in this series, and that's going to be, like I said, understanding the bully mentality. So looking at how a bully is created and the experiences with that within that. So check that out. It will be later than our normal hangout time on Thursdays. We're going to push it probably a few hours into the evening, but of course we will share all that information as we get closer to that date. So thanks again, Mike and Andrea, for joining me, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.